I shudder and wake up from the same nightmare that has tormented me for 10 years. I'm sitting on Marcus Netta's motorcycle, holding onto his waist, and suddenly I feel a strong jolt. I'm thrown onto a stone slab by the side of the road, pain shooting through my entire body. They say you don't feel pain in your dreams, but I did. That ride turned me into a disabled person, not in a dream, but in reality. "Mom, I think I'll go for a walk," I said at breakfast. "What's gotten into you? You don't like being seen by people." My mother seemed surprised by my attitude. "I'll just walk down the sidewalk and come back. Maybe new ideas will come to mind for my fairy stories. Otherwise, I'll soon run out of ideas." "What ideas can come up here? Cars rarely pass our street." My mother always grumbled. Ever since my father left us, she became closed off and bitter. And then there was the tragedy with me, which happened literally a few weeks later, which finally broke the woman. I often felt that my mother blamed me for everything. Even though the divorce was inevitable, they were just very different from each other. I didn't blame my father. I understood that he had finally found his true love, even though he was almost 50 at the time. I was on my way home when I saw them. Marcus was carrying a baby in his arms, and next to him was Ana Blanco. Tears filled my eyes, and I turned my face away, not wanting to meet his gaze. If it had been up to me, I would have gone to the ends of the earth never to see Marcus Netta again. He was living his life to the full, and to think that he used to laugh at me, the quiet Anna, who wandered the school corridors like a shadow. And now, this young woman couldn't be called lackluster. It was clear that she took care of herself and dressed with style and taste. Maybe she was just happy. They say that when people feel happy, they become more beautiful. They blossom. I discreetly looked back to watch the happy family and didn't realize that the road had ended and it was time to turn towards my house. I only noticed when I bumped into the black Jeep parked in front of my house. "Great," I muttered, trying to reverse. A scratch appeared on the car's polished surface. Just what I needed. "Need some help?" a young man asked, opening the door. I looked away from the scratch and looked up. "It's me, Na Hill." "Yes," I replied, stunned. "Do I know you?" "Come on, I'm Soren Ortiz. Don't you remember me?" "Soren, I would never have recognized you. You've grown up so much. Where's that skinny kid who was always solving problems instead of living?" I was genuinely happy to see an old acquaintance, someone from my past. "My daughter and I are going to live here now." Soren jumped out of the car and pointed to the house next to where he had parked. "Are you kidding? Right in front of my house?" "Yes, I used to walk around in circles just to see you for a moment." He looked into my eyes. "Soren, I've often thought about you. I can't believe a nerd like me didn't interest you." "No, I mean, after that terrible accident, what happened?" "I left right after graduation. I don't know anything about what happened here without me." "It's a long story, Soren. I'll tell you someday if you want." I drove the cart to my house. "We're going to settle in with Ada and we'll definitely invite you over," Soren said, opening the trunk. "Soren, I scratched your car, it seems," I said guiltily. "I'm ready to accept the punishment." "Nonsense, I was planning to repaint the car anyway." "So long." I continued on my way, wondering what would have happened if I had reciprocated Soren's feelings at the time. He couldn't take his eyes off me back then, but so what? I started dating the charming Marcus. That guy turned my head. I thought it would be a lifelong love, but it was just a childish illusion. That day I came home from school and my mother asked me to help out around the house. My mood was terrible. I'd had a fight with my friend over something silly, although it wasn't silly, at least not to me. Mia really liked Soren Ortiz. The girl desperately wanted to date him, but he only had eyes for his chores and for me, Na Hill. "What do you want from me, Mia? Do you want me to drag him to you by the hand, or maybe promise to kiss him so he'll start dating you?" "You're arrogant," Mia shouted and stormed out of the classroom where we were arranging chairs on the tables at the teacher's request. Yes, I went too far. I shouldn't have said it like that. But it's hard to understand a girl who's just turned 16. I've always been a bright girl, good at my studies and dancing. I even thought about a career in dance. It was hard for me to understand someone who was sighing over a botanist who only solved problems and sat on the windowsill, looking out thoughtfully. I left the school building. The children were running around the courtyard in groups. Nah, I heard it behind me. I turned around. It was Soren Ortiz. It was obvious that the guy was nervous. Maybe we could go to the movies, he suggested shyly. Soren, tired of your chores already? I asked mockingly, switching to girl mode now. It's just that I've wanted to tell you for a while. I really like you, Na. Soren, here's my advice. Go to Mia, my colleague. She's been sighing over you for a long time. Maybe something will work out for both of you. I looked him straight in the eye, my gaze cold, as if I were mocking him. And you're going to sigh for Marcus, aren't you? Soren asked suddenly, boldly. Well, go ahead, while there's still room in his moped. You'll be his next girlfriend for a few months. The guy abruptly turned and walked away. I felt a little uncomfortable. Not only had I argued with Mia and felt a bit guilty, but now this Soren nerd. I walked quickly home. Another unpleasant surprise awaited me there. My father told my mother that he was leaving. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to be angry with my father. I understood that living with my mother was a challenge. She was always dissatisfied with something, blamed her husband and even her daughter for giving them their best years and receiving only indifference in return. She wanted to be a model, even worked with a well-known photographer, but then found out she was pregnant. She had to marry my father and become a mother and housewife. The dream of being a model had to be forgotten, which is perhaps why the woman has never forgiven herself for not having chosen her career. Nah, forgive me, darling, my father said, loading his things into the trunk. I love you very much and I'm ready to support you if you need it. You don't mind if we keep in touch, do you? No, Dad, of course not, I replied, hugging my father. I understand that you and Mom are different people. You shouldn't have gotten married and had a child. Nah, my girl, don't say that. I thank heaven every day that you're in my life. We hugged once more and he got into the car. Mom was depressed, locked in her room and refusing to come out. I didn't know what to do, how to calm her down, how to prove that life goes on. Mom, open up for me, I asked, leaning against her bedroom door. I don't want to talk, she replied dryly. I don't want to hear your accusations that I was a bad wife, so your father found a good one. Mom, I would never say such a thing. You are who you are, and I love you just the way you are. You are my mother. You can still find your soulmate. What are you talking about? Who needs me at 40? I don't even have a profession. You talk like you're 80. Mia's aunt got married at 42, fortunately, by the way. My mother remained silent. I only heard her occasional sobs. I decided to leave her alone and went to my room. I was brought out of my gloomy thoughts by Melissa's call. Nah, I answered sourly. Hi, listen, Marcus Netta is having a party tonight. I've been invited on the condition that I go with you. He seems to have a crush on you, the girl laughed happily. Melissa, I don't feel like partying tonight, I said sadly. What's wrong? You like parties. I do, but my mother is upset and I need to support her. You know, sometimes it's better to leave your parents alone and go out and have fun. And this party is going to be amazing. Come on, don't you want to know why they asked me to take you along? I, for one, really do. All right, Melly, I'll think about it. You've got half an hour. I hung up. Strange, I thought. Could it be that Marcus really likes me and decided to invite me to the party through Melissa? What if this party is organized for that? My heart raced. Like many girls at school, I liked Marcus Netta. He was handsome, funny, liked to mop around and throw parties, but at the same time, he was a superficial guy, not a nerd like Soren Ortiz, but he got good grades. Marcus could do it all, party, and still have time to study. I called Melissa. So, girlfriend, I see you're ready, huh? Ready to turn Marcus's head? I'm ready to have fun tonight, I replied cheerfully. They picked me up at 8. Melissa went out with Bruno, Marcus's friend. Let's dance. Marcus took my hand. Chills ran through my body when he pulled me much closer than the dance required. I felt dizzy, not knowing if it was the cocktail or the closeness to that handsome man. I didn't care. I didn't want to think. I just wanted to dance with Marcus, pressing myself against him and breathing in his expensive perfume. That night, we didn't separate. Nah, let's stay together, Marcus said suddenly, his face very close, and a moment later, our lips met. No words were needed. I agreed to be his girlfriend. We started dating. My life changed dramatically. Marcus was always looking to see me, I was just waiting to see him again. My mother didn't forbid me to go out late at night. It was as if she didn't notice me, always depressed. It was a warm July evening, and I was fidgeting in front of the mirror, choosing what to wear. Marcus was going to pick me up any minute. I looked in the mirror and was satisfied. A light blouse with black butterflies on a yellow background and dark pants made me look especially fresh and attractive. "Kiss me," Marcus asked, sitting down on the moped. I caressed his neck. "No, a real kiss." He turned around and pressed his lips against mine. "Give way!" I tried to interrupt the sweet kiss, but it was too late. A jolt, an impact, and I was thrown against the stone slab beside the road. Wild pain all over my body. Darkness. I slowly emerged from the fog around me, difficult to breathe with tubes in my nose and throat, difficult to open my eyes, the bright light blinding. I tried to move my hand. "Awake," said the nurse next to me. "Can you feel your legs?" I didn't understand what she was saying. I tried to move my legs, but I couldn't. It was as if I couldn't even understand where my legs were. "No," I answered softly. "What about that?" The nurse lifted the blanket and picked up a needle leaning over the bed. "Can you feel the injections?" "No," I mumbled through dry lips. "Oh, that's what Dr. Alonso was afraid of." The girl in white looked worried. When my parents came to pick me up from the hospital, at first glance they seemed like a real family. The doctor said that Nina's body is young and strong. Everything will depend on her will to live. If her will is strong, her body will have the resources to recover. But if not, my world collapsed. There was no way to talk about dancing. I was a powerless invalid, my legs refusing to obey. And Marcus? He hadn't written or called me once. What if something terrible happened to him, and they didn't tell me, for fear of traumatizing me even more? I asked on the way home. "Mom, what about Marcus? Is he okay?" "He only came out with a few scratches. He was thrown into a pile of hay." "Where is he? Did he ask for me?" "In our town, rumors spread fast," my mother said sadly. "He's gone to the capital. The new school year is starting soon." My heart sank. Marcus was living his life full of new experiences, hopes, and events. But what awaited me? A wheelchair, confined to the house. I didn't want to think about such terrible things. I had to adapt to the new conditions. I had to move to a room on the first floor, as the stairs were no longer for me. My father came to visit me, but I hated these visits. He felt sorry for me. He still loved me, but pity filled his heart. But the worst were the constant fights with my mother, who took every convenient moment to say something about his young wife and how she had to give up her modeling career. In those moments, I wanted to be on a desert island, or rather, to die and not see my wheelchair, my constantly fighting parents and this unreachable world. Over time, my father's visits became rarer, and then stopped altogether. I missed my father, with whom I could always find something to talk about, but it was easier this way. No one felt sorry for me. No one fought with my mother. She gradually adjusted to the situation and even started working in the local store, with a funny name, Beer Hedgehog. What a hedgehog had to do with it was a mystery, and we laughed, saying that perhaps the owner just loved these little animals too much. The years passed, but I never had enough resources to walk again. My only solace was reading anything I could find, escaping into a world where I wasn't destined to stay in that cursed chair until I died. A world full of wonders, incredible events, and heroes to cheer for. That made my unhappy fate less bitter. One day I realized that I wanted to write something too. I longed for something magical, different from mundane gray life. I wanted to create a world where everything was possible. Everything was only possible in a fairy tale. That's why I started inventing fairy tale plots and writing them down. At first, it was difficult. It came out clumsy and lifeless, but over time the characters began to come to life and the events became vivid and lively. One day, I sent one of my most successful fairy tales to an online children's magazine. Imagine my surprise when they accepted my work and offered me a collaboration. Now I was writing not only for pleasure but also on commission, and I had a small income. 10 years passed, and sometimes I felt as if fate was mocking me, taking away almost everything. Not only had I lost the ability to walk on my own 2 feet, but also this reminder of my past life. I often saw Marcus and his wife, Anna Blanco. She never stood out, neither in appearance nor in her studies, just a typical, ordinary girl with an indistinct appearance. Why did Marcus choose her? He didn't even look at girls like that at school. I wondered why he didn't pick up some girl from the city and instead come back to our city and marry this lackluster girl. After meeting Soren, I couldn't calm down for a long time. Sitting in my room, I thought about the past, remembered how I laughed at the feelings of the modest guy, not used to courting girls and not spoiled by female attention. I had caused him pain. It was visible in his eyes and his tightly pressed lips. And he was right. I didn't stay long in the back seat of Marcus's moped. He wouldn't even speak to me, and when we met, he avoided eye contact, not even greeting me. I hated that man and his dull wife. I should be happy. I should dance, and the audience should applaud me and shout, "Bravo!" This anger was destroying me, I understood, but I couldn't do anything about it. I closed myself off more and more in my sad world. But one day, a faint ray of joy finally penetrated this impenetrable darkness. It happened when I was wandering aimlessly around the web and came across a book whose author vividly showed how to sculpt figures of people and animals in polymer clay. My eyes lit up for the first time in years since that terrible accident that turned my life upside down. I began to learn how to create beauty. The most interesting thing was that I succeeded almost immediately. Then I started inventing my own ways of creating this or that figure. Even my mother admired them, although everything else always bored and saddened her. "Nah, honey, you need to show these to someone. They're so alive." "Oh, Mom, who would I show them to? Who would care?" "Well, there are different online communities. I don't need to tell you about that, darling. Maybe one day someone will see my toys." I smiled, wiping my hands with an ink-stained napkin. Another July 13th arrived. That day, I was sitting behind Marcus on his trusty motorcycle, anticipating a fun time in the company of my favorite boyfriend. At night, I woke up several times from the same nightmare. I couldn't get back to sleep until dawn. My mother's voice woke me up. "Nah, Soren Ortiz is calling you. Should I say you're asleep?" "Soren? Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "No, I'm not. He's waiting for you outside, with a little girl. Mom, tell them to wait. I'll be right there. I just need to get ready." "All right, I'll tell them." My mother left the room quietly. "Hi," I said hello, walking carefully down the ramp. "Hi," Soren got up to help. "Would you like to take a walk with us?" "Where are you going?" "We wanted to go to the beach, but there's sand and it would be uncomfortable for you." "How about the park? Is that park with the statue of the violinist still there?" "Yes, my mother and I occasionally go there." "It's 100 times harder to drag my mother out of the house than it is me," I laughed. "This is Ada." Soren pointed to the blonde girl with a blue butterfly clip in her hair who approached us. "Hi," I said. "Hi. Is it true that you and Dad went to the same school?" "Yes, it's true," I replied. "Is it true that you can't walk?" "Ada!" Soren interrupted his daughter. "It's okay," I reassured her. "Yes, it's true. You're beautiful." The girl came closer and ran her hand through my hair. "Thank you, dear. You're very beautiful too. You have your father's eyes." It was quiet in the park. Aita was happily riding her scooter while Soren and I strolled along. He pushed my wheelchair with confidence as if he had done it many times before. We talked about everything. I told him all about myself without holding anything back. I felt that this young man was really listening to me, not just nodding politely and then forgetting everything as soon as we said goodbye. "You know, you can hit me over the head for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Maybe it's necessary for a reason. I mean, you're stuck in this chair. You know, for several years now, I've been trying to look at life philosophically or whatever it's called. I read somewhere that if something in life isn't right for you, instead of asking, why is this happening to me, you should ask, what is this teaching me? And then many things become clear. Well, why do I need this disability then?" I asked sadly. "Just to suffer for the rest of my life?" It's reasonable, of course, but no, it's not for that. You need it to better understand that you are very strong, capable of overcoming many obstacles, and also so that the Lord can protect you from something, you know? It sounds strange, A terrible accident was necessary to avoid a disaster, but that's only at first glance. Sometimes a person misses a flight that seems to determine their whole life, a business meeting or other important matter. They curse everything they can and then discover that the plane has crashed. Soren, you're not just a lover of mathematical problems, he smiles. You're a real philosopher. For some reason, after that conversation, I felt a warmth in my heart, and strangely, I wanted to live. I wanted to watch how a mischievous ray of sunshine breaks through the dense foliage of the trees, how a little bird lands on a thin branch and begins to sing, swaying rhythmically and ruffling its feathers slightly. Yes, I was wheelchair-bound and couldn't walk through the park, but I still had the opportunity to feel this world, to discern what resonated in my soul. I could describe it in my next fairy tale, or even create something different, a story or a novel. Soren, I'm sorry to intrude, but I suddenly started. Where is Aita's mother? Pilar died in childbirth. He stopped near a bench. Do you mind if we stay here for a while? I nodded. The place was so cozy, quiet and conducive to sincere conversations. Pilar and I met at university and started dating soon after. We got married and lived with my parents. We studied, worked part-time, and dreamed of our own home. I told her about my hometown. Believe me, she was looking forward to moving here. She didn't like the hustle and bustle of the capital. I don't think I would have liked it either, I agreed. We wanted our baby to be born after we'd settled into life, but we don't always decide, do we? Pilar got pregnant. Everything was going well, but my wife didn't survive the birth. There was nothing the doctors could do. How awful. How difficult it is to lose a loved one, especially the mother of your child. Yes, it was difficult. I wasn't prepared for that turn of events. Who could be prepared? You loved her very much, didn't you? I asked softly, placing my hand in his. You know, I didn't love Pilar from the start. At first, I just wanted to forget about you. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a twinge of conscience. When I was still just a girl, I disregarded his feelings and directed him towards Mia without thinking about how it would hurt him. He really did love me. I couldn't hold back the tears, which streamed down my face incessantly. I didn't try to stop. Nah, are you okay? Soren asked, offering a handkerchief. Forgive me, Soren. Forgive me, I replied. Forgive you for what? I have nothing to forgive you for. No, it's just, I haven't had such a sincere conversation with anyone in 10 years. I was a fool back then, when you invited me to the movies. Forgive me. Silly girl, we were just kids. Yes, I really wanted to be with you, but you needed something else, not my nerdy self. Remember how everyone laughed and said that first came the CDF, then Soren Ortiz? Yes, exactly, but you shouldn't call yourself a nerd, that's not true. You're a very sensitive person. Aida is lucky to have you as a father. Very lucky. You know, if you need anything, I'm ready to help. Maybe you need someone to look after Ada. Thanks, Nina. I think I'll have to turn to you more than once. Sometimes I have to travel for work, and Ada doesn't cope well with long journeys. She gets seasick. You bravely took on the task of raising your daughter alone, without anyone's help. At first, my parents helped, but now my daughter has grown up. We manage fine. He smiled, his eyes full of tenderness. I never imagined that I could love someone as much as I love Aita. It hurts terribly when we have to part, even for a short time. You're God's gift as a father, I smiled, if you can call it that. We sat for a while longer, and then went to look for Aita. She had already found some seeds somewhere and was feeding the pigeons. Nah, look how cute they are. The girl looked at the birds with affection. Yes, birds are messengers from heaven, she said. If you want to tell God something, feed them and share your secret with them. Really? Aida looked at me with interest. I nodded, and the three of us headed home. Are you coming to visit us? The girl asked when we were close to my house. Absolutely, I promised. See you later. I cried a lot that day, but several fairy tales were born. How I missed a soulmate, someone I could just talk to, share my pain with, and let the tears flow freely. Imagine, the guy I had rudely turned down became closer to me than my own mother, not only listening but also offering the perfect support. It was a rainy day, The gloomy sky hung over the earth as if it wanted to crush it and not let it breathe. Sitting at my writing desk, no plot came to mind. Nagging thoughts arose that loneliness would accompany me for the rest of my life. The ring of the telephone interrupted my thoughts. It was Soren. "Hi." I felt a joy similar to the one I felt when Marcus called me many years ago. "Hi, darling. Are you busy today?" "Yes. I have an audience at the Royal Palace and a dozen dances promised to the most distinguished gentlemen," I replied, laughing. "What a shame. I wanted to invite you here." "You know, I think I'll cancel my social outing and accept your invitation." My heart leapt with joy. We were having tea in the living room. Ida was chattering happily, showing off her drawings and clay sculptures. The girl hadn't made any friends yet. After all, she and her father had just arrived and the new school year hadn't started yet. Soren's phone rang, and he went out to answer it. "Girls," he said when he returned a few minutes later, "I need to attend to some matters urgently. The bank will collapse if I don't show up at the office. Can you manage without me? I think I'll be back in 3 or 4 hours." "Sure, we'll manage," Ida exclaimed happily. "No worries. We'll find something to do," I replied. Soren looked at me gratefully and left, leaving me with Ida. I had no idea how to interact with children, but Aida took the initiative. The girl first brought literally everything from her bedroom into the living room to show me, since I couldn't get to the second floor. She enthusiastically showed me her collection of insects and capsules and crafts made with a special game tape. I couldn't believe Ada's creativity. "You know," she said when we decided to have lunch, "I think you're an enchanted fairy. You need to be disenchanted and then you'll walk again." "Do you really think that?" I asked seriously, although a smile threatened to appear on my face. "I'm telling you, of course." "Oh dear, if I knew how to break the spell, I'd do it gladly." "It's not your time yet," Ada said mysteriously. "But it will be soon. I can feel it." "Do you want me to show you my dolls?" I asked. "Dolls from your childhood?" "No, the ones I make myself." "You make dolls?" The girl's eyes lit up and she couldn't sit still. "Show me quickly." I opened the box I had packed in my backpack, preparing to visit Soren and his daughter. "How beautiful. They're like the dolls in my dream. They're alive. Would you like me to give you one of them?" "For me? Would you give it to me? Won't you miss it?" "No, we're friends, aren't we?" "I also have animal figures, but they're at home. I have a whole collection. Will you show them to me?" "Of course, the next time we meet." "I'd love to make dolls like that too," Ada said dreamily. "I may not be a great teacher, but I can try to teach you something." And so we made a deal. The day was ending and Soren still hadn't returned. He sent a message saying he was running late and asked me not to leave the girl until he arrived. I moved from the armchair to the sofa in the living room and we looked at pictures. "Nah, it tells an interesting story," Ada asked suddenly, closing the photo album. "What kind of story?" "A magical one." "Magic would be good," I agreed, and told her some fables I'd recently composed. "How interesting. My dad always talks about numbers. It's boring. Where did you read these stories?" Ida looked at me intently. "I made them up," I replied simply. "I told you you're a fairy. You probably even have a magic wand. I haven't come across anything like that yet." I laughed. It was so nice talking to this little girl. I didn't have to play a role, hide anything, or pretend something that wasn't real. The girl didn't even suspect that I would find solace in the company of a 7-year-old. We fell asleep on the sofa in the living room, cuddled under a blanket. I was living my usual life, but something had changed. I spent a lot of time with Aita, watching in fascination as she worked on her plastic figure, trying to imitate everything I did. I was surprised by the girl's diligence. Nowadays, most children prefer gadgets and entertainment, but Aida was completely different, as if she had come to our day from another time. One day, Aida surprised me. "Nah, do you mind if I talk about you at school?" "Who are you going to tell?" I asked. "We're having an evening where everyone who wants to can talk about an amazing person. I want to talk about you." "What's so amazing about me?" I was surprised. "Everything. You're a storyteller and a sculptor in one, and you're also enchanted." "Darling, I don't think anyone will be interested in hearing about me. But if you insist, I agree. Let's bring your toys and fairy tales too. Aida bounced around me, unable to sit still, full of joy and incredible excitement. The night of the incredible people had arrived. I was nervous. I hadn't visited my old school for 10 years. As well as fear, I was curious about how everything had changed there, whether there would be familiar faces. The evening was organized in an unusual way. It wasn't held in the auditorium as usual, but in the schoolyard, in a tent specially set up for the event. Each participant entered the center of the circle and gave their presentation. There was a projector showing images of the people and their achievements mentioned in the presentations. Without exception, all the students spoke about past geniuses who had contributed to science or art. Aida's turn came. "I want to talk about a fairy," she began. "She doesn't look like a fairy from fairy tales. Her name is Na Hill. Na, by the way, went to our school." Applause erupted, then Ada continued. "We've only recently become friends, but we're very good friends. Na writes such interesting fairy tales that anyone will listen and forget everything else. And Na also teaches me how to sculpt dolls and animal figures. Here are some pictures." The girl pointed to the screen, where pictures of her sculptures appeared. Applause erupted again. "Let's invite this mysterious fairy here," said the hostess, dressed in a bright yellow dress and a hat with a black feather. The audience applauded and began to look around. No one could have imagined that the fairy was confined to a wheelchair. Soren led me to the center of the circle. "Here's my fairy," Aida smiled. "She's still enchanted and sitting in a special chair, but soon she'll be flying again." An evil witch got angry with Na and deprived her of her gift of flight. "Please tell us a bit about yourself," the hostess asked, handing me the microphone. "Hi, I'm Nina Hill. I actually studied at this school. I dreamed of being a dancer, but fate decided otherwise. Maybe it wasn't my path, and to prevent me from making a mistake, it essentially took my legs off. It was very difficult at first, but do you know what saved me?" In the tent, there was total silence. Books. I read them and lived the lives of the characters, escaping from my monotonous world into theirs, full of adventures and events that made me laugh or cry. Then I wanted to write something too, and I did. I'm still writing. "What about the dolls?" asked the hostess. "Yes, the dolls are a separate story," I replied dreamily. I was no longer embarrassed. I didn't care how I looked or what the children and adults gathered there thought of me. "Who taught you to create such beauty?" The hostess shook her head, the feather in her hat fluttering like a candle in the wind. "A book I found on the internet, or rather, its wonderful author." I followed the instructions. It came out terrible at first, but it was only the first attempt. Then I plunged into the world of creativity. Believe me, I even had to buy a set of dental tools. They're great for sculpting miniatures. Thank you, Nina, and a huge thank you to you, Ada, for introducing us to this amazing person living here and now. It was very interesting, the hostess said, the tent erupting in applause. As everyone began to disperse, a woman approached me. "Miss Hill, would you agree to teach the children how to sculpt miniatures?" "Well, I don't know. I'm not a teacher. I don't even have any pedagogical training. In fact, I don't have any training at all, just school." "It doesn't matter, at least not yet." "And where?" I asked, interested. "At school, we have an applied creativity studio. I don't think you'll be short of students. No one in our town does that. We'll discuss all the conditions regarding salary. I'd be happy to try. I don't know if it will work, but I accept. So please leave me your phone number. I'll get back to you as soon as everything has been cleared up." I gave him my number, and we said goodbye. That night, sleep hardly found me. At first, I just lay there staring at the ceiling, but when that became unbearable, I moved from the bed to the chair, rolled over to the table, and turned on the lamp. I wanted to create. Just think. The adorable little girl Ada, whose daughter I had rudely refused at school, gave me today, albeit a small one, but still a star. The applause literally made me dizzy. People were interested in what I had to say and interested in my life, my vision of the world. That hadn't happened for many years. Had it ever been like that? Now I felt it hadn't. I had been working in the studio for several weeks, teaching children of different ages how to create plastic sculptures. I felt like a truly sought-after specialist. My students loved me and their parents appreciated me. teachers began to notice that the handwriting of the students who attended the sculpture classes improved, and so did their academic performance. Could a girl stuck in a wheelchair for 10 years dream of such things? She could, but she didn't dare. Nah, my mother started one day. You seem so happy lately? Are you in love by any chance? No, Mom. It's all because of my work. The success of my students lifts me up a lot. Somehow, I thought it might have something to do with Soren Ortiz. My mother smiled. No, Mom. Soren is just a good friend, that's all. Ouch. I groaned in pain. What happened, dear? My mother worried. My legs are tingling, I struggled to say. What's wrong? Can you feel your legs? She asked, amazed. Yes, it feels like it. Do you remember what the doctor said about the reserves? It seems that your reserves are being renewed and your legs have decided to join in too. But that can't be. They haven't worked for over 10 years. You just finally wanted to live. My mother radiated happiness. I hadn't seen her like this for years, maybe ever. Try moving your fingers, the doctor said calmly. How? I asked, surprised. Just try. Imagine that all you have to do is move your fingers. It doesn't matter that you haven't walked in over 10 years. I focused and tried my best to comply with the doctor's request. The attempt failed. An intense pain ran through my legs from my hips to my toes. Ouch! I screamed. It hurts so much, unbearably. What does that mean? It means that the muscles are starting to work, as well as the blood vessels, veins, nerves. In short, the whole system is kicking in. Now you need regular massages, even self-massage, and it would be great to swim in the sea. Seawater is a powerful remedy. I understand. I'll try to follow all your recommendations. I left the office and my mother, Aida, and Soren were waiting for me in the corridor. Soren offered to drive us home. What did the doctor say? Soren asked. He said I need to swim in the sea. I smiled. Really? My mother asked. Yes, it's true. My lower limbs are starting to work. How silly of me. Soren slapped his forehead. Why didn't we do this before? Then let's go right now. Wait, I'm not ready, I protested. I don't even have a swimsuit. The one I wore over 10 years ago won't fit me anymore. I have a swimsuit, Ida exclaimed. It's very nice, very sporty. Honey, yours definitely won't fit me, I laughed. It's not mine. It's my mother's. She was just like you. Let's go to our house now and you can try it on. A warm feeling spread through my body. How great it was to have people around me. People who cared about me and who I was ready to love, just because they were there for me. Another wave of pain ran through my legs, but it wasn't as sharp this time. More like the feeling you get when you sit in one position for too long and tingles start to appear. Let's start with ice cream, I suggested. Everyone agreed. Let's celebrate the fall vacations, Ada exclaimed happily and ran towards the exit of the clinic. Everyone ran after her. You never know. All the ice cream could be sold.